Všetci ste pripravení? Môžeme pokračovať? Dobre.
Well, back. I just noticed that Dmitry, Nikolai's Russian publisher, brought a bunch of books here of Nikolai's. So if anybody's interested in some Nikolai's books, they can check them out over here. They're wonderful. If you have never read Nikolai's books, it's an experience. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you an idea of how I work, people I've worked with, the results of some of my cases. And some years ago I got a telephone call from a famous American doctor, famous in medical circles. And he was a professor at two medical schools, and very, very distinguished fellow, very, very top of the line, considered one of the top 3 or 4 ophthalmologists in the world. And he called me from his home, which was, I don't know, maybe 50 miles from where I was, and his wife was having an attack of atrial fibrillation. And he wanted to see if I could help his wife, because his wife did not want to run to the hospital. And so I worked on his wife, and I relieved the attack of atrial fibrillation. And he got fascinated. And he was a very, very, very deep, real man. It's just an amazing guy, really. And he got so interested in what I did that he came to meet me. And we spent many hours and days together. And I explained to him how the system works, what I do. And he came to my demonstrations, and after which he gave me a quote, which is on my website. And he said, "I truly think the type of healing done by Robert Ginzburg is the medicine of the future, and I have studied the scientific basis of this work." Dr. Kratz, he not only has a medical degree, but he has a Doctor of Science degree. So when he says he studied the scientific basis of the work, you know he did. And a little bit more about Dr. Kratz, probably before your time, but there was an American TV show, ran for years, called Marcus Welby, MD. And Marcus Welby, MD, was played by Robert Young, the actor. Well, Robert Young had to get a corneal transplant on his eye, and he came to Dr. Kratz, and Dr. Kratz did the transplant, but the insurance company denied payment. They said the work was experimental. So Dr. Kratz and Robert Young both went to the U.S. Congress and testified before Congress, and they got the law changed, and payment was made. So you see, Dr. Kratz, he was a man, a pioneer, and a man who really fought for what he believed in. And it takes great courage for a medical doctor to endorse this work. Because the work really, you can say, undermines everything that traditional medicine thinks and does. But there's no drugs, you don't deal with symptoms, on and on and on and on. But he endorsed the work, and one of his fellow ophthalmologists who met me also endorsed the work. They were the only 2 doctors. Otherwise the medical community has just been quiet. They're just quiet. They're just not going to react to it, and unfortunately, because if they would just take some of the aspects of the work, what's causing disease, for instance, and building up a database, then things would spread, and people could start getting healed. Well, I got a telephone call from a professor at West Budapest University while I was living in London. And he told me that a little while before, he couldn't get off the floor he was so dizzy, had such vertigo. He was taken by ambulance to the hospital. He spent 5 days in the hospital being tested. Tested for everything, stroke, this, that, whatever. Everything that the medical profession knows, they tested him for. And at the end of the 5 days, they concluded that he had Meniere's syndrome, which is a catch-all, if you will, for an inner ear disorder. And they gave him 4 types of medication, and they told him to reduce his daily activity. Well, after a while, he got kind of bored, I guess, and he called me from Budapest. And from that telephone call, I can scan his system. And when I scanned his system, I could see there was a problem with his neck. Because when I go scan like this and I go down the body anatomically, I get to the neck, my hand starts going like this. So I know there's a problem with the neck. And I look a little closer and I could see the vertebrae are out of place, the muscles were all tight. So I saw the cause. It did not take me 3 minutes. He was in the hospital 5 days for testing. Okay? And then once I found the cause, I then create a program. How do I fix this problem with his neck? And the program is put all the vertebrae into place, take out the tension in the muscles, balance the system. And I send that to him with my thoughts. The thought is a program, how to fix the neck. It reaches him wherever he is, and it works. It goes to his body, and it puts the neck into position. And his dizziness and everything left. Not immediately, maybe 4 or 5 treatments. He sent me an email saying, I am now ice skating on one skate. So you can see what this work can do and how we're so limited in our thinking. And well, I'm not here to attack the medical profession, because I honestly like doctors on a human level. What they're doing is just child's play, a fellow came to me who was a video producer, and he was having problems with his neck. And he had gotten 10 years worth of treatment, and nobody could solve his neck problem. He did all the things that people do to solve the neck problem. And he came to me, and I scanned. And I told my brain, show me where the problem is with his neck. What's causing the neck problem? And when I got down to his pelvis, the pelvis was rotated. So when your pelvis is rotated, that's going to put more pressure in the neck and everywhere. So the cause of the problem was the pelvis, not the neck. So I get a program, put the pelvis into position, and I did that right on the spot for him. And I put the pelvis into position, and the neck pain left. 10 years the guy had the problem. And he's probably been to 20 or 30 different people to solve the problem. But nobody was able to solve the problem. And again, it goes back a little bit to our thinking. I told you a little bit about my training with Nikolai, but among the things Nikolai taught me to do was to scan. And to scan to pick up information, which is harder to do than it sounds, because it's very hard to scan and keep your own thoughts out, to have a completely blank mind and see what you pick up. Let the information come in. Don't have any thoughts beforehand. And then when you scan this way, you will pick up information. And And it didn't happen overnight for me. It took me, quite a bit of time to be able to do that. And, it took some time. And one of the things of Nikolai's work, and I've talked a little bit about it here, is the way we think. Binary thinking. I don't know how many of you know that, but in binary thinking, somebody has a neck problem, you look at the neck. You don't look holistically. You don't look at all the things that could be involved. They don't understand that the body is a network. Okay? It's a network. The quantum physics tells us that all the atoms of the body are made of subtle energy. And, quantum physics is just learning their way through here. But if the atoms of the body are made of subtle energy, so must the body be made of subtle energy at its deepest level. Would have to be. So, and when quantum physics tells us that when you work on one electron, if you will, it'll affect all of them. They all affect. So the same way with the body, when you work with one part of the body, it'll affect other parts. The body is a system. It's a network. Everything's connected. But binary thinking doesn't look at any other alternatives. Neck, look at the neck. There's no analysis as to what's causing the problem. The thinking is just so limited, and it's a global problem. It's not a medical problem, although you have symptoms of the medicine. It's the way we think on the planetary level. One of the things in Nikolai's books, he has a document about that was brought to Earth from space, the real Celestine prophecy. There really is such a document, and it's in Nikolai's book, and you could find it on his website or my website. And the document said, paraphrasing, you cannot call people of Earth, pardon me, not personal here, intelligent, because their thinking is so narrow, so binary, just sees right or wrong. That's why you can't solve any problems. It's our thinking that has to be changed. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem. So I had a woman who contacted me because she had migraines. And she had very serious migraines, cluster migraines. And she's been working on it for years and years and years. And nobody's been able to help her. And she just kind of gave up. Well, she contacted me, and I scanned her. And my understanding of traditional medicine, I may not be correct here, my understanding is that they believe that it's a contraction in the veins or the arteries that causes the migraine. And they try to treat that. Well, when I scanned her, what I saw was the atmospheric pressure was not being balanced right in the head. Okay? So it was the atmospheric pressure that was causing the migraine. And what I did is I solved the problem. I took away the pressure, and the migraines left. The interesting thing to me is if that fact was known, that people are connected to the cosmos directly. Everything we do is connected to the cosmos. What effect would that have on Earth? And one of the things that seems to me would happen, that if people knew they were cosmically connected, they could not be manipulated the way they are. They couldn't be programmed the way they are. People would be stronger. They would understand. They would have more pride in themselves. I'm connected to the cosmos. My thoughts can influence the cosmos. You know, this is not somebody walking around wondering, you know, what's the purpose of their life. All those questions get answered if you're connected to the cosmos. So that would be a nice thing to get rid of, huh? Another woman came to me and had arthritis in her hip. And she had years and years and years of treatment, and they work on the hip. I scanned the body, and I could see the problem was coming from the kidneys. Okay? The kidneys filter blood. If the kidneys don't filter blood right, the toxins stay in the blood. The brain wants to get them out of the blood and puts them where there's room in joints. So the fluid in the joint fluid becomes more viscous. And you get what the world calls arthritis. When I get people with arthritis, I work on the kidneys. I just unblock them and the arthritis goes. So you can see our thinking. Our thinking has to change. Our thinking has to change for the 20th time. It's not an easy thing to do, to change the way you think. It really isn't. But it's where we're heading. And I think that's going to be one of the major steps where people will be free from influence. When your mind becomes free, you're free. And your thoughts become free. If people know I can think about this and it's going to happen somewhere, you know, it gives you a lot of power. It gives you the ability to do things. You know, I was contacted by Paul Honan, who was a medical school professor, and he had asthma. And he called me up, and he was in the midst of an attack. And he just didn't want to go to the hospital for treatment. He wanted to see if I could help him. So I scanned him for his asthma, and I could see the bronchioles were a little blocked. And I sent a program to unblock the bronchioles, if you will. Or you can send an image of the bronchioles unblocked. That will work just as well. And the bronchioles got unblocked. He sent me an email. Thank you for saving me. The traditional treatment for asthma, severe as I experienced, would be hospitalization for several days with intravenous oxygen and steroids. So there you be. And a case that I'm very proud of. And it's an American college student. He was 21 years old. And he went to Ghana on an exchange basis. And while in Ghana, he developed malaria. He was placed in a Ghanese hospital. And he contracted pneumonia. It rendered him unconscious. And he was unconscious for a while. And he was airlifted back to the States in intensive care to San Francisco. He was in intensive care for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The family was called together and they were told that we're sorry, but we cannot help him. The system is resistant to the antibiotics being used, which is a common problem these days. So the antibiotics were not helping. At that point, excuse me, one of the cousins knew me, and the parents were willing to try anything at this point because they were basically told their son was going to die. And they contacted me, and I scanned. And when I scan, this gets very technical. You may not need all this information, but why not? So I look to see where the infection is. What is the infecting agent? And I can locate them. And when I see them, that they're bacteria. So bacteria are alive. They're single-celled organism. And life is created in the bacteria, the same in the human. So there's a way to block the life apparatus, if you will, in a bacteria. I block the circulation of the energy from the physical to the etheric level, which is where life starts. So I blocked the circulation, the bacteria died, and he was healed. It took a little while. But a life was different, it is, from really anything else in the world. There's nothing even close, you know, and it's all from Nikolai. It's all information that he brought here, that I was fortunate enough to experience and learn. And I hope it's given you some idea, a little bit more of what the work is, how it works, how it's a completely different level than anybody's ever imagined before. Okay, I think that'll be enough of that. Anybody have a question about that, the work?
Robert, are you able to see, when you do your work, I mean I asked you that yesterday, but I think it would be interesting for everyone to know, when you do try to scan, are you able to see the astral level? Are you able to, or are you able to feel the astral level? Or it varies?
No, I can see it.
So
I can see it. When you scan and you want to heal, you have to ski it. You have to scan the astral and etheric level as well, because they're involved in. You have to heal all levels to heal disease.
Okay, so normally sometimes when people come with different disease, it might not be in a physical level, but it might be starting up on astral level, as an example. Is that
Well,
correct?
no, it's usually on a physical level.
Already when they come to you?
Yeah, by the time they come to me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Thanks, Rob. My question is, I guess, having experienced a cure from a disease, and in 15 years seeing how much this disease is ravaging the world, I wonder about what visions or hope there is for the future to reach the scale of the problem of the disease, given that you and I have had this journey, and I understand what people are going through. There's millions of people who need this. How does that happen?
How does what happen, Eli?
Well, how does everyone else get healed?
I don't know. You know, let me introduce Eli. Eli is here from Australia, and he flew for 32 hours to come here, and he arrived on yesterday, was it? Yeah. He just arrived and came just to hear this information. And come on up here, Eli. Tell people your experience.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I definitely wasn't expecting this.
You'll be fine.
Tell them about your disease and what happened and how long you had it.
I would say that I've been sick my entire life. I'm 35 now. I would say that my whole life I had immune, digestive, nervous system illness, but I didn't really know what was going on. I went to every single specialist for many years. I went to every natural healer for 15 years at least. I spent my life devoted to trying to heal it, and unfortunately I just failed, and no one else was able to help me. Sometime last year, after many years of having symptomatic relief, I went into a relapse, a disease called ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease. I became extremely unwell and was hospitalized, and whilst I was in hospital, I was given quite a severe diagnosis and treatment regime, and I decided not to take it, much to my family's dismay. At the same time, I very clearly requested what I wanted to experience in my healing, and within 10 days I somehow came across Robert. After the first treatment onwards, I started experiencing very remarkable positive changes in my being, in my life. Issues that had plagued me for many years just started to evaporate off me, and I got a very clear understanding of the core problem that I was facing. It's been about 18 months now. I've been mostly symptom-free for a few months. This work is dramatic in comparison to anything else, I should say.
How did you find out about Robert?
I think, when Robert describes meeting Nikolai as the soul thing,
Right.
For me it was, a lot of this stuff is about trusting a feeling of a higher knowing.
Right.
And that higher knowing is somehow intuitively connected to reality and
Right.
the feedback from reality.
Have you read Nikolai's books?
I have, yeah. Reading Nikolai's books whilst receiving the treatments has been absolutely profound. All the questions I've asked on a soul level my whole life have been,
Answered.
Yeah, answered, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
In Eli's testimonial, which will be put on my website, the new website's being designed, one of the things he said is that this work is a new paradigm in healing. And that's exactly what it is. It's brand new. It's a whole new, different thing for the world. And I'm the only one doing it, unfortunately. Doesn't make me feel good. And so you wonder, how's it all going to work out, I mean, I know it's going to work out. I know Nikolai's got it all set up, but there you are. It gives you an idea of the work and how it works and how it's so different than anything else in the world, and there you are. Anybody have any questions? Yes? Oh.
Someone else?
All right.
Well, it's just you just mentioned that you're the only person that does the work, the healing work specifically. As I believe, there were quite a few students when Nikolai was teaching you for 15 years, so no one else, as you are aware of right now, is a healer, active healer like you are.
That's correct.
So what the rest of the people do? They just decided it's too hard for them, or you don't know?
I think everybody found a different reason not to do the work, depending on their situation in life. First of all, it's very difficult to learn. It's not something you could pick up a book and learn. And you have to go through an awful lot. And I was talking with Martin's brother, and you have to experience failure. You have to be willing to fail, because nobody is going to learn this work quickly. Your whole thoughts have to change. So you're not going to be successful all the time. And you have to be willing to go through that. And then in addition, I'm just thinking of the people, to do this work, to be trained by you have to be impeccable. You cannot have any kind of issue going on inside of you. And then two, you have to be your tunnel vision. You cannot think of anything else. There was a couple doctors that were training with Nikolai, and neither of them were really able to develop as healers.
No.
And I think it's because their mind was already blocked, medically speaking. They had all these theories, It's hard to get past that.
Thank you.
Hi. I just would like to get back to these devices that you were mentioning before. And because I think it was quite questionable what we can imagine under this, like devices. Because, for example, for me, I can imagine the device that can provide any kind of electromagnetic field or something, maybe mobile, maybe microbial, or maybe something like that. So I would like to ask, what kind of devices we were talking about, that we are not creating the positive energy instead of Negative instead of positive.
I don't know all the devices in the world, but if it's a device, it has to work with energy, right? And I don't know that there's anybody evolved enough to create a device that's really going to work. You know, the device, you program a device with your thoughts. You know, you send your thoughts into the device. So in order for a device to work planetarily on other issues, the person's thought must see all the variables. They must know everything that's going on. If you're going to try to work with the soil, you might have to know what affects the soil, where, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the details. And then your brain has to be powerful enough to create a thought that's powerful enough to affect the device.
Okay. And what about who actually making these devices? Maybe is there some company who doing this to avoid to buy something wrong, so to buy the proper one?
There is no proper one right now that I know of.
I see.
You know, Nikolai made devices himself, and they worked. You know, but the people who came afterwards say that Nikolai showed them. He didn't. And I don't believe any of the devices are any good. The ones that I have experienced, I would say be very, very careful and be very suspicious. You know, there's no quick, easy fix. There's no button you're going to push that's going to solve all the world's problems. And just be cautious. It's a good business, these devices. It's like McDonald's, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. I would like to ask you regarding the devices. I have one example here, and there were some questions from people to see how does it look like and whether is it this what we're talking about. Could I actually show you the device that you could see it?
Sure. Sure. I've never seen one.
И на камеру покажите, пожалуйста.
And this was given to you by who?
So Martin?
Martin, you gave us on this device? This device is not negative. It's just not very powerful. But it's not negative. That's not the device. The devices I've seen, this Fennel device, I've just seen it on the internet. You know, you push a button and energy comes out, you dial it, and all that. That's a different thing. That's done with somebody's thoughts. And it's not negative. Any other questions? Okay.
I've got a question again, Robert. Martin.
Anna has a question.
Robert, sorry again to bother you. You mentioned when you first met Nikolai, you said that the guy had no ego. Now, the question is, you obviously have been going through a lot to get to the stage we are right now. So how did you work with your ego to get rid of it, to be able to continue with your work?
That's quite a question. That's quite a question.
Sorry, I wanted to know.
No. It's very good. And of course, I was a lawyer when I met Nikolai, and I had a lawyer's ego. And couldn't have that ego and do this healing work. So I worked on it, I was just aware of it, on a daily basis. And I worked for several years, to overcome that ego. And eventually I succeeded. I was just aware of it and I worked on it, and eventually it worked.
Thank you, Robert. And final question for me. There's a lot of movements right now going on about, I know Nikolai spoke about it on his lectures that are in Russian, but I don't know if the guys in the audience were able to watch them. But there's a lot of movements right now, which is vegan movements and the vegetarian movements. What's your attitude towards it?
What kind of movement?
Well, vegan movements, so people don't eat eggs, honey, any milk, dairy products, and also vegetarians. What do you think about that? Because we're talking about energy right now, and food gives us energy.
Well, I can only tell you what Nikolai said about food. Our genes were fed on balance of what we eat.
Right. Between
meat and vegetables. Nikolai says that if you eat all meat, you're emphasizing one part of your body and you become a little, more with the brain. If you eat vegetables, it affects the digestive system. Nikolai says you need a balance for both. And that the people who are vegetarians, in the long run, they weaken their thought processes because the brain cells need meat.
So does it mean that affected their shield? If that's
the what?
Does it mean that the vegetarians for a long time affected their shield, their inner shield, their defense mechanism?
If they were vegetarian?
Yeah, for a long time.
I would think so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a healing for the... Yes, there's one more question.
Čo sa deje s tou dušou vlastne, keď teda človek zabije zviera alebo teda nejakú nižšiu bytosť?
There is a question, what is happening, what is going on if a human kills an animal?
What do you mean?
Like if there is some... Because there is some karma things probably going on, or some effects, and there was a question if a person kills an animal, if there is some effect going on.
You mean if a human kills an animal?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, it depends on the situation. And if it's hunting to survive, it's not karma. But if it's done from some other motive, anger, meanness, it's karma. Yes, you can't kill animals,
Okay.
I mean, we survive by hunting. It's not a karmic issue. I'm watching this tremendous program on television. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. It's called Mountain Men. And these guys all have left society, so to speak. They're living off the grid in Alaska. And they do everything themselves. Everything. And build their houses, everything. It amazes me to see what these guys do. And certainly, they hunt. Because that's where their food comes from. That's not karma. Okay?
čo viete o chemtrails, alebo čo si o tom myslíte, ako sa dá chrániť voči tomu.
There is a question about chemtrails.
About what?
Chemtrails. These chemical trails after airplanes.
Better come closer, Martin. I don't.
It's a question about chemical trails which are after airplanes. If do you know something about that?
I don't know anything about it.
Мартин, я поясню. Николай Викторович рассказывал о том, что самолетами сбрасываются химические препараты над городами большими, что приводит к психическому подавлению людей.
Nikolai, in one of his meeting with readers, quite often mentioning that in a lot of big cities, lots of planes flying over the cities spread around some chemicals which can suppress people's brain, their development, stop their development. The question was before from the audience, do you know anything about it?
I don't.
Right,
I don't know anything about it, but I certainly don't doubt that they do that. You know.
Moja otázka je ohľadom duše ešte, keď človek spácha samovraždu. A tam bolo povedané, tak skrátene poviem, že vlastne tá duša je potom zožratá, ak to takto môžem povedať, nejakou inou bytosťou. Čiže vlastne tá energia už neexistuje, už sa nedá nejako pomôcť tej duši?
There is a question about suicide. Like, if person does a suicide and it's been written then that these parasites can eat the spirit, and is there really no other way to help in such a case?
You mean that somebody's already committed suicide?
Yes.
If you're very, very powerful, very, very powerful, and that you can overthrow cosmic law, because suicide is a cosmic law when you kill yourself, then maybe you could do something. But as a general rule, I would say I don't think you can do very much to help the soul.
I think maybe the question was if such a soul is really going to die, or are there some chances for survival or some alternative?
No. No. They're wiped out.
All of them.
It's all over. They're taken out of the chain of the whole human chain, yes.
Does the same thing happens with abortion? When a woman does make an abortion, is it the same, coming back to the same sort of theory, if the woman does an abortion, is it the same thing?
It's bad karma.
Is it bad karma?
It's bad karma.
But the spirit is not eaten in that case.
The what?
The spirit is not eaten by parasites in that case.
It may be.
But not 100%.
It's not 100%, but it may be, yes.
Rád by som sa pýtal, aký je vývoj duše po smrti, po štandardnej smrti?
The question is about standard.
About what?
About when a person dies, normal way. What usually happens?
They go to the level that they attain during their life. So that's the whole goal of evolving the soul. So when you do die, you move to a higher level on the evolutionary chain. So
z toho, čo ste povedali, ani jeden z nás nie je na také úrovni, že by musel zabíjať zvieratá z toho, že by prežil. To znamená, že keď je mäso, tak porušuje vesmírne zákony. že tu žijeme všetci tak, že nie sme nutení jesť mäso, zabíjať zvieratá, lebo máme dostatok potravy inakšej. A z toho, čo ste povedali, vyplýva, že všetci, čo jedia mäso, vlastne porušujú vesmírne zákony.
I'll try to translate. From what we have heard, is that at this stage of we living now, we are not necessary to eat meat because we have another meal that we can eat, food. And when we actually killing the animals, does that mean that we're breaking the cosmic law? Because we are not actually forced to eat the meat because we have another many other types of meat, food, alternative food.
What's the?
You heard the question or no?
I'm not sure.
It can be translated here.
No, just tell me.
The question was about not everybody here is eating meat, and
You know, if you don't want to eat meat, don't eat meat. You know, all I can tell you is what Nikolai told us in class, that meat's important for the brain cells. But if you don't want to eat meat, don't eat meat. It's your choice. You know.
if you take this, the question from Slovak language will be directly translated for you to English.
Okay, I think that we're about done here now. I think what I'm going to do now is take a short recess, 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll do a healing for the whole audience. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is be sending energy to the group. The work is very, very subtle, you know, and if you have a particular problem that's bothering you, you could... Oh,
It's okay.
It's okay now?
Všetci rozumejú, prekladá sa, áno?
Okay, so I'll be producing this energy, and you may feel, everybody has different sensitivities, and if you have a specific problem that you would like the energy to work on, just think of that problem and see if it works for you. Okay? I'll be sending energy for a couple of minutes at most. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Anybody have an experience they want to share? Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Are we going up?
No, I'll sit here.
Okay.
Может быть, кто-то еще хочет?
Dobre, na teraz máme koniec, takže dáme si asi ďalšiu prestávku. Uvidíme, či sa ešte niečo bude diať, alebo či už sme skončili. Dobre?
Могу сказать о том, как движение в России. Ты же перерыв, да? Если Роберт не будет?
Да, но только сделай перерыв, хорошо?
Сейчас перерыв.
Ну, если когда ты будешь говорить, делай перерыв, чтобы я мог перевести.
Что ты сказал, да?
Robert, is it okay for Dmitry to say a couple of words?
Sure. Спасибо.
Takže Dimitri by chcel povedať pár slov, budem sa snažiť to preložiť.
Я приветствую всех от лица русских читателей из России. Мы с моей женой приехали на машине, взяли с собой немножко книг.
Vítam všetkých čitateľov Nikolaja. On so svojou ženou Svetlanou prišli až z Ruska. A sú to vydavatelia Nikolajových kníh, ako viete. Pár ich doniesli.
Так получилось, что вот уже 10 лет мы с моей женой Светланой издаем книги Николая Левашова. И 3 года с самим Николаем нам посчастливилось работать вместе.
Už 10 rokov vydávajú tieto Nikolajové knihy a pošťastilo sa im, aby 3 roky pracovali spolu s Nikolajom aj priamo spolu.
Николай Левашов — это уникальный человек, это великий русский ученый. Он очень порядочный, очень сильный, очень, как сказать, он сделал прорыв в науке во многих областях, в том числе вот как исцелять, многим это известно, наверное. И для нас большая честь познакомиться с Робертом.
Takže Nikolaj Levашov je ruský vedec, ktorý vzdelal ohromujúce pokroky vo vede veľké. Bol to genius, čo ešte povedal, pomôžte mi, ktorý je po rusky, že veľa spravil objavov, spravil veľmi veľa veľkých a dobrých vecí, veľa pomáhal.
И вот я очень рад увидеть, что здесь в Сербии очень много людей, которые интересуются.
Словакия.
Ой,
Словакия.
Что нормально? Для нас сербы, словаки, и вот это все славянское. Даже ваша речь мы слушаем на слух, она почти русская, только немножко искажение. Ничего смешного. Ну, близко речь близко.
Áno, za ruský. Takže Dimitri chce povedať, že sa mu to veľmi páči na Slovensku, že ľudia sú mu blízki, že Slovania sú všetci blízki, aj na Slovensku sa mu páči.
Я прошу прощения, я очень увлекся, сосредоточен на речи Роберта, и поэтому, только суть схватываю, простите, я...
Veľmi sa sústredil na reč Roberta a
что мне хочется обозначить, важно. Здесь часто задавали вопросы, я думаю, это всех интересует, по поводу целебных приборов, светл, все, что с этими связано, да, и так далее. Я сам из Петербурга, и с людьми, которые основали вот эти приборы светл, я лично знаком много лет, почти 9 лет примерно.
Ľudia dávali veľa otázok ohľadom týchto technológií, ohľadom zariadení svetlu. Nie všetkým to bolo jasné, ale išlo o tieto technológie. A pán Dimitri je s tým veľmi dobré alebo blízko zviazaný, že vie, o čo ide. Je z Petrohradu a pozná týchto ľudí, ktorí s nimi pracujú a ktorí ich vyrábajú.
По моему мнению, основываясь на свое наблюдение. Задача этих людей давным-давно еще была быть рядом с Николаем и имитировать деятельность.
Po jeho osobnej skúsenosti, to, čo si myslí on, po jeho pozorovaní je, že títo ľudia, títo výrobcovia mali zadanie, plán, že budú pár rokov čo najbližšie pri Nikolajovi a potom budú robiť toto.
Они не занимаются там изданием книг, не оказывают помощи в издании книг. Они сразу постарались зарабатывать деньги на продаже якобы оздоровительных приборов. Но, как многим известно, оздоровительного прибора не происходит. А напротив, происходит вред. И Роберт нам об этом сегодня рассказал.
Nejak sa nepodielajú, nespolupracujú na vydávaní a šírení napríklad týchto kníh, ale sú sústredení podľa Dimitriových slov iba na jedno, a to zarobiť peniaze. Bolo tam ešte niečo? Dajte mi sekundu.
Повторить?
В конце я сказал, что стремились именно зарабатывать деньги, распространяя приборы, да? Но мы видим, что и Роберт подтвердил, Слава, что оздоровительного эффекта нету, но есть бизнес.
Jasné, že Robert tiež potvrdil, že nie je táto cesta taká ľahká, nefunguje princíp stlačiť nejaký gombík a že by zariadenie niečo za vás spravilo, že podľa Dimitriových slov vidia tento cieľ predaja týchto zariadení iba aby zarobili peniaze a так.
Николай в России создавал общественные организации, общественные движения, цель которой, основная цель, возродить правильное мировоззрение в обществе, среди людей живущих.
Nikolaj sa snažil, alebo mal hlavný cieľ oslobodiť ľudí a vrátiť im, alebo ukázať správnejší svetonázor, a to bola jeho hlavná úloha, ktorú si vybral.
Он хотел возродить общество людей, основа которых справедливость, порядочность, честность, правильное развитие. Но чиновники, которые у власти, они заинтересованы, чтобы люди были в невежестве, мало обладали знанием.
Nikolaj sa snažil prebrať ľudí z týchto nevedomostí, nevedomia, informovať ich. Не пойдем еще раз, но короче...
Ну, Николай пытался возродить общество, основанное на справедливости и честности.
Nikolaj sa snažil, aby sa ľudia prebudili, aby v nich prebudil čestnosť, spravodlivosť.
И он назвал, что вот враги всех живущих основные — это социальные паразиты. Как вот большой организм, есть болезни, да, социальные.
A označil ľudí, ktorí škodia tomuto procesu, ktorí sa snažia presný opak, aby nazvali ako sociálni paraziti, ktorí sa snažia o presný opak.
Да. И, на мой взгляд, и Николай об этом говорил много раз, задача пробудить именно ментально, чтобы люди начали мыслить.
Vlastne Nikolaj sa snažil ich z tohto spánku, ktorý vznikol ako výsledok týchto parazitických aktivít, prebudiť, aby človek sa stal samostatne mysliacim v prvom rade.
Вот именно путь развития, Витя Ра, по-русски это Ра, солнце, Витя, просветление знанием, он говорил.
Takže je to z ruského slova razvitie, ktoré má koreň slova ra ako svetlo a ako znamená to, že sa človek ako presvetlí vedomosťami.
На самом деле, по опыту могу сказать, развиваться очень трудно и очень тяжело.
Po svojej skúsenosti chcem povedať, že rozvíjať sa je veľmi ťažké a náročné.
А приборы светл, они предлагают нажать кнопочку, ну, купить прибор, нажать кнопочку, и ты уже просветился. Халява.
No a tieto zariadenie svetlo robia, alebo dávajú možnosť ľuďom práve tu stlačiť tlačidlo a hola všetko spraví za teba.
Поэтому я предлагаю развиваться, именно читать книги. В книгах Николая заложено много хороших программ.
Takže on po svojej skúsenosti radšej odporúča prečítať a naštudovať Nikolajovú tvorbu, Nikolajové knihy, kde sú založené aj programy, ako Nikolaj sám povedal, aby človek ľahšie chápal a ľahšie vstrebával tieto informácie.
Да, и последнее хочется сказать, пожелание. Очень хорошо, если вы будете объединяться в какие-то там группы, ячейки, общаться на своем уровне понимания и обмениваться каким-то уже опытом и хранить этот опыт. Он поможет правильно развиваться, не делать ошибок.
Chcel by odporúčiť, že je podľa neho dobré potom o týchto informáciách spolu medzi vami debatovať a zdieľať si svoje pocity alebo výsledky tohto štúdia a tak sa navzájom môžu podľa jeho slov ľudia viac obohatiť.
Мир невозможно изменить, ничего не делая, нажимая кнопочку. Только большой труд на совесть, от души для своих сородичей, сверстников, только он поможет изменить жизнь к лучшему.
Stlačiť nejaký gombík nepomôže nič zmeniť, zlepšiť, ale je to tá ľudská snaha z vašej duše, z vašeho vnútra, ktorá len po dlhej a vytrvalej práci dokáže niečo naozaj zmeniť, niečo naozaj vyvinúť k lepšiemu.
Ну, это все, что я хотел сказать. Спасибо за внимание.
Toto som zase nečakal ja, ale snad som to aspoň nejak zvládol. Dobre. Vyzerá, že budeme končiť. Uvidíme, že či sa náhodou neobjaví ešte nejaký nápad u kohokoľvek a či sa náhodou ešte neudeje nejaká beseda, možno interview, alebo niečo také v myšlienkach niektorých tu prítomných. Ale myslím, že takto oficiálne teraz končíme. Takže som rád, že ste prišli. Dúfam, že to bolo aspoň trošku zaujímavé, možno obohacujúce, že si každý odnesol aspoň niečo to svoje, že sa nad tým hlavne, ja by som povedal taký svoj doplnok, svoju vetu na záver. Ja dúfam, že sa nad tým každý zamyslí samostatne, aby si naozaj ľudia naučili sa myslieť, naučili sa rozmýšľať a zhodnocovať informácie a situáciu sami. To je taká moja malá veta na záver. Takže ďakujem. Yes. What was the movie Storm all about? Dimitri, he had nice words about Nikolai, about what he was doing, what was his last primary directions, what he was trying to do in Russia. He was talking about books, about the point that it's not enough to trigger some point, some like on device more important thing for you. That person has to really push himself and work hard, and people
What a trip.